Hey everyone, welcome to the Pawareness Podcast, and thanks for joining me. This podcast is specifically for about educating and raising awareness for animals and rescues and organizations across the United States and world. It really goes a long way towards this mission when our listeners rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and all of our other podcast platforms. Also, be sure to check us out on our official website at pawareness.org and on social media at TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram at Pawareness_podcast. You can check us out for all of our latest bits and clips of our podcast, as well as Pet of the Week and Pet of the Month. If you're listening and involved with an animal rescue organization or have a story of your own that you want to share, reach out to us at info@pawareness.org and we can get you on the podcast. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Hey everyone, welcome to today's episode of the Pawareness Podcast. Today, I am fortunate to get to speak to Kris Roy, the founder and CEO of Doobert, which is a combo of Uber and Airbnb for animals. So really grateful to have you on, and I'm just going to go ahead and pass it over to you and introduce yourself and the organization.
Sure. Thanks, Chris. I'm really excited to be here with you. So as you said, I'm Kris Roy. I'm the creator and founder of Doobert. Doobert.com, which is, as you said, it's software. It's designed to connect volunteers with rescues and shelters that need their help. So I like to describe it as kind of like a volunteer-based Airbnb and Uber for rescue animals, because we're the only platform that supports fostering, transport, case management. Like, we support all the hard things about taking care of animals.
Yeah, and to kind of give us a better picture of, can you walk us through kind of how this started and the problem you were seeing in the industry, just to kind of give us a better idea of what problems you guys are solving? And I'm excited to dive into that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like a lot of people, I didn't really know what I was doing when I kind of started. So I got into rescue back in about 2008. I'm a pilot is one of my other hobbies. And a friend of a friend said, hey, would you be willing to fly down to pick up these dogs? They were looking to pick up dogs in Kentucky and bring them back to Milwaukee. And of course, I didn't know any of the reasons why, but I'm like, sweet, I get to go fly in and play with dogs. Like, what else is there in life? So of course I agreed, and I didn't really realize this was a thing, like that transport was a thing. And slowly my name started to get shared with other organizations, and all of a sudden I was getting calls from literally people all over the country. I would get calls from California, and they're like, hey, can you fly down to Texas and pick up these dogs? I'm like, I live in Wisconsin. Look at a map, right? It's not going to happen. And I kept saying, like, there's got to be a database. There has to be a place where I can go as a volunteer and say, listen, I'm willing to fly. Here's where I live. Here's the days I'm available. And here's how far I'm willing to go. And sadly enough, it didn't exist. And so I decided, well, I'm going to solve this. I'm going to create this. And when I originally was doing it, it was to solve the problem for pilots. And as I got closer to launch, somebody said, hey, that's great, but could you also let drivers join? And I was like, all right, what's a driver and why do they need to join? So it really was a learning experience for me, but we launched Doobert on May 23rd of 2014. We launched with 0 volunteers and 0 organizations, the big goose egg, and continue to really try and build it out and promote it and all those things. So I'm proud to say now we support more than 5,000 organizations and 35,000 volunteers. And we've continued to build out the platform. So it supports transport, it supports fostering. So when people are, caring for an animal, and we support case management is our newest thing. We support fundraising, and there's some new stuff that we're coming out here with, to support the idea of a pay it forward model, right? Where, to me, one of the hardest things for rescues and shelters is to make any revenue, right? To be able to do their life-saving work. So I'm really excited that we're launching a program called Doobert Forward, where we're going to sell all the stuff that Chewy and Petco and all those online retailers sell, so all your pet food. But the difference is we're going to allow you to designate a rescue or shelter to receive 5% cash of your order. So if you spend $100, we're going to pay them $5. And we're going to let you pick which organization you want to benefit. And my idea is that, hey, listen, there's some people that want to help, but they they just can't volunteer. They don't have a vehicle, or maybe they don't have the house. But this is a great way if they want to contribute and give back to animal welfare just by buying pet food and toys like they normally would. So
that's really exciting. And I have to ask you too that, I really don't talk to too many. I think you might be the second person who's ran a software that I've brought on. But whether you're running a software or an animal rescue, I think what a lot of people battle is organizations is just the ability to kind of like, you get good at one thing and then you move on to the next, and you get good at one thing. And it seems like that you're really good at that. And so can you kind of talk about that and maybe like how many employees you have, and is this your, just kind of go into that a little bit?
Yeah, it's definitely. So the crazy part is I still work a full-time day job.
Wow.
And so this is my nights and weekends job. I've got a team now. We've got almost 20 people that, keep everything running and, do the development and design and support. As you know, there's just so much that goes in to something like this. And, as you said, I started with transport, and I didn't really know why, because that's what I was doing. And what I realized really quickly was nobody was doing this. And to this day, Kris, no other system out there supports what we do. Like, we literally have no competition. There are certainly people can try and coordinate a transport via Facebook, but the Doobert system, for an organization, they can put in the from and the to. We plot it on Google Maps, break it into legs, automatically notify the right volunteers. So it's way more than just posting to Facebook that you need transport. So I started there, and then I realized that, before you could get to the transport, that was kind of like step 3 or 4 in the process. First, you had to have 2 organizations that wanted to work together. Well, how do they find each other? And I realized there wasn't any place that they could go to really find each other. So we built in kind of a partnership, module in there so they could find each other. Then we realized they couldn't have a transport if they didn't know what animals they were sending. So we built in, the animal profiles and the ability to share those profiles so they could see, which animals the sender is able to send and the receiver is looking for. And then from there, I realized that, okay, so a lot of times the animals are coming from a shelter, oftentimes going to a rescue. But in order for a transport to work, you got to get the animal out of the shelter. Because, particularly with volunteer-based transport, it's really hard to predict. So I realized we needed to pull the animals and put them in foster. So a lot of this really became, the more I learned and the more I discussed and socialized with these organizations, the more we learned how to keep expanding the software outside the 4 walls of a shelter, outside the 4 walls of a rescue. There's those complicated workflows, and that's really where we specialize. So I like to say Doobert is like a set of technology tools for those really complicated things that, you need to do to be successful in animal rescue.
Yeah, that's a great point. And that's really interesting too, the fact that you're kind of the only business in this niche. But usually that means when you're the pioneer, there's probably going to be some, you're the one paving the way. So What are some obstacles that you've encountered or are encountering that you're currently seeing, right? That.
I would tell you the biggest obstacle still to this day, 8 years later, is awareness, right? People don't know that Doobert exists. We still sign up anywhere between 10 and 15 new organizations every week. They hear about us through the grapevine kind of thing. I've spent $0 on marketing. So if somebody wanted to come along and give me some money for marketing, maybe we could do this faster. So that's certainly a problem, is helping them understand. We've really focused a lot as of late on trying to simplify kind of the inner workings of the software to make it more intuitive and, put help videos and text and things like that, because of the complex workflows that we support, there's nothing else out there. So people don't have something to compare it to. Whereas if you look at, for example, shelter management software, there's literally over 24 that I counted. The big ones: Shelter Love, Shelter Buddy, Shelter Manager, PetPoint, Chameleon. And those are like the top 5. There literally are more than 24 of them out there. So all of those things do the same thing. So if you've used one, they all make logical sense. But because we don't have anything else out there that compares to Doobert, we find that that's hard, right? For people to understand where, like, what does it do? My example that I always give people, Kris, is it's like you don't know how to add, and I just gave you Excel, right? If you don't know how to do a transport, how are you going to use an automated system that's going to manage your transport and communicate? So some of these workflows we found, we have to kind of back up and educate people. How does a transport work? How does a volunteer-based transport work for an organization? It's pretty clear as the volunteer. So since there's two sides to Doobert, right? There's the volunteer side and there's the organizations. But for volunteers, it's pretty easy. They sign up, they fill out their profile of the ways they want to participate, and system lets them know when something matches. But for the organizations, they're the ones that have to kind of generate that transaction. They're the ones that put in the transport request or the foster request. So we found that that's been kind of a hurdle as well, trying to educate them as to what this can do, right? When they've never seen anything like it. So it's a constant struggle, I would say, to try and continue to show them, teach them, particularly because, like you said, I'm always moving on to the next thing. I'm like, there's more problems that we need to solve, and trying to expand, the use of the software, because there's so many ways technology can really enable people to save more animals.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I'm curious to know from your perspective, if, I feel like, okay, when you're on the kind of ground floor, so to speak, and you're volunteering in shelters or whatever aspect of that, it's easy to kind of get that gratification of, like, oh, I saved this animal. But this is kind of like the behind the scenes type thing where you're saving animals, but it's not on that forefront. Do you ever, do people ever let you know, that this, write you letters, or do you ever hear any stories or anything like that? And if not, yeah, it's does that bother you? Do you need that kind of gratification to do what you do? I'm curious.
That's a really good question. I don't think anybody's ever asked me that. I will say it is hard, because when I was doing transport myself, flying, right, I personally was involved in saving hundreds of animals over the years. And, that's great. And it's very, as you said, it's very rewarding and fulfilling. And, because you physically are hands-on with the animals and meeting the people and doing all that. But I also knew there was a bigger purpose. And I'm proud to say that with the Doobert system, we've been a part of saving more than 15,000 animals. And it's, as much as I wish I could be involved in these, because it is, I got to tell you, there's nothing like doing an animal rescue and being a part of a transport and knowing that you're making a difference. These animals, they just know that something good is happening. They may not know why, they don't know where they're going, anything like that, but they just know. So it is hard to be behind the scenes. Occasionally we do get, an email or something from somebody. I really love looking at the rescue stories. So we have after you do a transport, the system will automatically email you to upload your stories and your photos, and we automatically turn those into blog posts. So I like going back through and seeing the smiles of the volunteers and the animals on their rescue, because, just to know that something I've created is helping people to do that and to get involved and be a part of this, that's what warms my heart. So it is hard to be behind the scenes, but I wouldn't change it.
That's awesome, because it's like you said, there's some big problems and so many problems to solve, and you're kind of the one that's the organization's orchestrating it all. So that's so cool. And what are what's next on your bucket list? You kind of mentioned you got the shop opening up here. Yep. But do you have a board of different things, or what's that like?
It would take me walls in here to fill it up with, Kris, honestly. Yeah, the Doobert Forward is the newest thing, so I'm really excited about that. We're just getting going on that, because my goal is to try to help rescues and shelters to earn money. And to me, it's a very community based thing. So if somebody lives in Milwaukee, right, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, you want to give and support to a rescue or a shelter that's in your area, your community. And that's what we're doing. That's very different and unique. There's a lot of websites or a lot of, pet food companies that say we support rescues, right? But they don't allow you to specify where your funds are going. And I don't know about you, but I spend, anywhere between $50 and $100 a month on pet food, right, for our cats. So to me, it's if I can buy in a way that I know my buying is going to support an organization that I want to work with or support, I just think about the impact that people could have, right, if everybody's doing that. So I'm excited about that. Our case management module is something that we're really building out even more and adding more workflows. Both with our foster module and our case management, we have two-way text messaging. So we assigned every organization their own phone number. So unlike a lot of people, or a lot of platforms that'll say, oh yeah, we have text messaging, but it's one way. It's just like an alert. You can actually text the people back, right? So they can text you and you can text them back. So we're going to continue to build out those capabilities to make it easier. We've already got things like rehoming built in, and we want to build even more workflows and macros and automation. Those kinds of things is really where we want to go. And then some of the upcoming things on my bucket list, if you will, been working a lot more with animal sanctuaries. So they've got some very specific needs. So I want to further build out the software to support their use cases. I'd love to add more features and functions on the transport and the fostering side. Like there's always just so much more that I want to do. So never at a shortage of work to be done, for sure.
That's cool. And for anyone listening who doesn't know maybe like what an animal sanctuary entails, what exactly constitutes as an animal sanctuary, right?
Yeah. It's a tricky term, right? So there's about 300 to 400 of them across the US. And they're a permanent location for animals that are rescued. There are farm sanctuaries, there's, dog sanctuaries, cat sanctuaries, bird sanctuaries, there's all sorts. Wildlife sanctuaries, they are the permanent home for the animal, as opposed to with rescue, usually you're the intermediary, right? The fosters are temporarily taking care of the animal and then getting them adopted out. A sanctuary is the forever home. And these are the places when you hear about these horrible, hoarding cases or abuse cases, oftentimes sanctuaries get involved, as do shelters, to find permanent places for these animals. And a lot of these animals, whether they're farm animals or companion animals, have led just a horrible, horrible life. And they have medical problems and other, issues and ailments that require a special level of care, right? For somebody to care for them and let them live out their life in peace, if you will. So for these types of organizations, it's, they need a place to network together, and everything from sheep to goats to ducks to, horses, you name it. They've got all sorts of different types of animals that they're caring for. And so if I can help power them with technology to work better together, that's kind of my goal.
That's really interesting. Yeah. It's, so it comes out to be about like six a state or maybe a little bit more than that. So that's really interesting. And I guess what are some, like, where can we all, find you? If an organization's listening, I want to know, where can we reach out and kind of, get a hold of you at?
Yeah. Pretty easy. My email is just Kris, CHRIS, at Doobert, Doobert.com. Right. And, reach out. I love hearing from people. I love, hearing ideas or pain points, things that we can do. You can sign up for free on the site. Everything's all automated. You don't need me, as I like to say. So you can be a volunteer. You can sign up as an organization. And I look forward to hearing from people what we could do or what we could build that would really help.
Yeah, and that'll all be down below. And I want to ask before we close off is, you mentioned you were a pilot. Do you think you'll ever do that again, like transport animals yourself, or have you kind of, thrown in the towel on that?
Oh, no, I have not given up on that. My goal is to eventually be able to quit my day job so I can focus on Doobert and get back to flying, because it's definitely something I enjoy.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And everything will be down in the description below. Kris, I know that we tried to do this podcast a couple of times. We didn't end up, pulling it off, but we did now. Thank you so much for coming on. And it's really, really interesting. It's not every day I get to talk with someone doing what you're doing. So thanks a lot for coming on.
I appreciate it. I enjoyed talking to you.